College football's coaching carousel always fascinates me. You know, the hiring and firing of coaches is interesting. It is full of chaos and mystery, and that's just what we're going to talk about today. Specifically, my 5 hottest seats of the college football world. 5 coaches who I think need to do extraordinary things, at least for the most part, to keep their job after this coming 2022 season. I'm going to spend just under to around 2 minutes per coach. After that, we're going to talk about some other names, like guys from smaller schools, guys who are close to being in my top 5, but at the end of the day, I just didn't think they fit. And yeah, that's how this video is going to go. So first and foremost, let's get right into it. Let's get down to the business and talk about my number 5. The guy who was once considered an elite coach. My number 5 hot seat goes to David Shaw. He's not number 1 yet. He's had too much of a resume to be even close to number 1. David Shaw is 93-45 at Stanford. He is 64-31 in conference. He is 2-2 in New Year's Six Bowls. His teams have finished in the AP Top 10 3 times and in the AP Top 20 6 times. This sounds like an impressive resume, and it is, especially at a place like Stanford where you have, some academic restrictions and such. But here's the catch. Ever since 2019, his program has been a combined 11-19. 11-19 since 2019. It's not a good look. He has not fired any of his coordinators from his previous 3 years. They're all the same guys. Tavita Pritchard on offense and Lance Anderson on defense. Those are the respective coordinators. Stanford, I do not have a lot of hope for them as a program, but I think that just a disheveled Pac-12 North is in favor of a team like Stanford, who is basically a very stable, whether that's a good thing or bad thing is your opinion, but a very stable program. Same head coach, same OC. I think they return QB Tanner McKee as well. I think these things, plus the number 1 Pac-12 recruiting class, will keep David Shaw alive in his program, breathing on life support for another year. But by survive, I don't mean extend. I still think there's going to be low confidence, and I still think he'll be on the hot seat in 2023. What a fall for a guy that was once considered elite and is still by some mentioned as a candidate for NFL jobs. My number 4 is Dino Babers at Syracuse. His seat is, I'd say, significantly hotter than David Shaw's, actually. My top 4 are guys that, it's basically have a winning record or be fired. It's not like have significant improvement. It's the record, not on-field performance or off-field, not recruiting. The record determines what happens. Dino Babers is interesting because unlike David Shaw, who has a proven resume, Babers has only had 1 winning season at Syracuse, a 10-3 season in 2018, where his team finished number 15th in the AP and coaches poll. They won the Camping World Bowl that year as well. And he's 15-35 in the ACC. He'll also be in year 7. I think he'll be fired, personally. And that's because they have so many stars transferring out, and that I just think is a recipe for disaster at a place like Syracuse, where they are not recruiting well. They don't have an amazing transfer portal class, but they are bringing in some transfers. Their schedule, at least when I look at it, seems to be rather tough for me, though. Just looking at it, they host Purdue, they play at Clemson, they play Notre Dame, at Pittsburgh. It's just, to me, it does not set Syracuse up to have a winning record. A cupcake schedule that gets you wins will get more confidence in you as a coach than you saying, well, I had a tough schedule, so that's why we lost. games, if you kind of catch my feel. Babers also, despite being known as like a guy who has an explosive and aggressive offense, his offenses have fell flat on their faces, so not a good look for him just as a coach and schemer in general. I think he'll be out by the end of this year. So whereas David Shaw survives, Dino Babers, I think, is going to get the axe after this 2022 regular season. But we will see. After all, this is just a prediction, and I have not spent a lot of my time investigating Syracuse football at all. So maybe they will prove me wrong. At number 3, you have Jeff Collins from Georgia Tech. Jeff Collins is another example, like Dino Babers, of a guy who came from a lower division school. By lower division, I mean like place. Jeff Collins came from Temple. He was originally the defensive coordinator at Florida before then, where he commanded some, legendary defenses under Jim McElwain. He went 7-6 and 8-4 at Temple before leaving for Georgia Tech. And at Georgia Tech, he's 9-25. Most wins he's had per year is 3. And he's 7-18 in the ACC. Jeff Collins is 2-2 versus FCS teams, and I just look at that and I'm like, wow. My face right now is in kind of an utter shock. 2-2 versus FCS teams. This guy's the head coach at Georgia Tech, who was once proud. They won a national title, in the 90s. And Paul Johnson was a good coach. And Jeff Collins, it's sad, but I think that his time, much like Dino Babers, is up. I think in 2022, much like Syracuse, the schedule does not play to their advantage. I think, if I'm correct, they play like Ole Miss at UCF. They play Clemson in their opener at Pitt. And at Georgia, too. I mean, they face Georgia every year. And look what Georgia's turned into. They're like set to be Alabama 2.0 once Nick Saban retires. I don't think he'll succeed. I think Georgia Tech needs someone different. The triple option worked at Tech, and it seems like deviating away from it and trying to, build a quote-unquote more modern offense, which is what Collins is trying to do, has completely fallen on its face. I think he, much like Babers, will be axed after this coming season. Before we get to number 1, there is number 2, though. And number 2, like number 3 and number 4, I also think will be fired. But Jeff Scott is younger than some of these other guys. And this is also Jeff Scott's first, head coaching job. Whereas Babers and Collins succeeded at Group of 5 schools, Scott is struggling mightily in the Group of 5 realm. He has I think a good or average transfer portal class, which can help him with some immediate success. They were definitely better this past season than they were in 2020, but he's 3-18 overall. He's 1-14 in the American. It's first head coaching job. He seems way over his head. You just have to wonder if South Florida, who, Jim Leavitt had a good program there, Willie Taggart did well there, Charlie Strong, even though he ended his tenure there with a bad taste, had some good years, and Jeff Scott has just shown nothing. Absolutely nothing. He, in my opinion, is a bright OC, as when he left, Clemson's offense did start to decline, but here we are. He's at South Florida. He has to succeed, and unfortunately, I don't think he will. The American, as there's a reason that Cincinnati, UCF, I think Houston, and maybe another program, I forget, are moving to the Big 12. The American was the most, and will be until those schools officially move to the Big 12, the best Group of 5 conference. And USF, under Jeff Scott, just definitely cannot, at least at this moment, to me, compete in that division. And finally, we have a shocker here. A shocker to you is that not Scott Frost being number 1, but the fact that I think he will be extended. And that's weird, especially seeing, that some of these other previous guys who, they play in weaker conferences, other factors that might go their way. Why would you choose Scott Frost to be extended? Well, he has the hottest hot seat, so I'll tell you what. There's no reason in Nebraska's AD's mind for failure. He doesn't finish with a team that is competing for the West Division. Frost is out. 6-6, 7-6 will not cut it. I mean, it might, but I don't even think so. I think he'll be extended because, and I've made a video or two on this. You can also check out my Big Ten prediction video. Their transfer portal class is top 15 material. They got 2 good QBs. They've upgraded their offensive staff, where some of these other programs that I mentioned, most of them, in fact, have not. They've either downgraded or kept the same thing, or they made panic hires, like they fired a guy who just wasn't working but hired someone worse. Frost went out and hired Mark Whipple, an NFL assistant, to coach the O-line. I'm not going to go on talking about this much. But nonetheless, he does not deserve benefit of the doubt. I think he'll succeed, but that 15-29 overall record is disgusting. 10-25 in the Big Ten. I mean, Nebraska has went from the cream of the crop, which is funny because that's a reference to corn, to like the corn that is just lying on the bottom of the stalk, just rotting away and being eaten by flies. 0 top 25 wins as well. He'll be in year 5. Listen, you don't have to agree with me that Scott Frost will succeed, but what is undisputed is that he is on the hottest seat of the country by far. That is something that everyone can agree with. He goes out and loses to Northwestern. By the way, the earlier part of his schedule is really easy, and if he is going to succeed, he will take advantage of that to set his team up for momentum. Their only tough game in their first 6-game stretch is Oklahoma. If he goes out and loses to Northwestern in week 0, I can guarantee you he probably not fired on the spot, but the conversation might be had, which is that's just what I think. But that's my top 5 right there. Again, you got David Shaw, Dino Babers, Jeff Collins, Jeff Scott, and Scott Frost is my top 5. I think that only 2 of these will survive. There are other names, though, that we're going to move on to now. Butch Jones at Arkansas State, I'm just going to tell you right now, not going to work out. I don't even know what's going on with Carl Durrell at Colorado. I haven't investigated Colorado enough, but losing running back Jarek Broussard to Michigan State is not a good look, and hiring Mike Sanford Jr. as an OC is just, honestly, it's like hiring a toy soldier to try and coach a group of men. Mike Norvell at Florida State, I want to say he'll succeed, but I look at the schedule and I just can't. I can't see them finishing ranked or contending. Tim Albin at Ohio, Group of 5 school, I'm going to straight up admit I don't know what's going on there, but going 3-9 and just right after Solich retires, and Solich had that program in good standing, is not a good look. And Scott Satterfield promised Louisville, here's what you never want to do. You never want to make promises you can't keep. Never want to do it. An example that I heard today, but it isn't as bad. Mel Tucker basically saying, not promising, but saying Michigan State wants to win, or they have a goal to win a national title. Now that's fine to say, but Scott Satterfield basically said, like, I promise we're going to be great and we're going to get back to contending. You never want to make promises you don't keep. And whereas Tucker's is yet to be fulfilled, and if you're a State fan watching this, you might actually have hope to fulfill that. Scott Satterfield has proven so far that he is not going to fulfill anything close to, getting Louisville to be good. So interesting case there. His job is definitely in danger. Other names to look out for, just mentioning it just because, I don't think Steve Sarkisian is in danger of losing his job unless they have another terrible losing season like this year. If there's no improvement, then sure, but it looks very unlikely that a guy like Sarkisian would be fired. That's why he's not even on this list. Tom Allen at Indiana, I think that he's safe entering next year. Neil Brown at West Virginia, it seems that he's gotten them enough bowling seasons to where he's not on the on the tip of the iceberg just yet. Justin Wilcox is kind of the same story. Those are just some other names to look out for. And that's really all that this video is going to be about. I just wanted to talk about the hot seat to all of you guys. Sure, it's confusing. You can probably tell that I myself am a little bit confused and trying just to find ways to express some of my thoughts, because the hot seat is confusing. Coaching moves are confusing. I mean, no one except maybe the best of the best insider is going to know everything about coaching moves. And when it comes to the hot seat, we've seen plenty of guys be wrong. But I want to talk about it because to me, it's interesting. I think that people should be aware of it because you never want to be shocked when, X is fired. That's never a good look. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say for this video. If you liked it, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, click that notification bell, and comment your thoughts down below. And answer my one question. Who do you think will be the first head coach to be fired in the 2022 season? Tell me down below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys around. Bye.